Yeah, she was on the screen. Did we lose Robin?
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
I just turned off video because I assume we're going to have a presentation.
Are we?
No problem.
All right, we're ready to start.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call this Lacey City Council work session to order. We just have a one item agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? See none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? That motion unanimously carries. We have an agenda and I'll turn it right over to Rick.
Okay, and there won't be a PowerPoint presentation, just be a briefing tonight. And I know we scheduled this for 30 minutes, but I don't think it will take 30 minutes. But primarily I wanted to have the opportunity to give council some advanced information on some potential MOUs that will be coming from the state of Washington with all the Thurston County jurisdictions. And what this is coming from is the governor's office has issued a directive to the Department of Commerce, Washington State Department of Transportation, as well as the State Patrol to look at the I-5 corridors in Thurston, Pierce, and King counties, and to identify encampments and to start cleaning up those encampments and trying to place those individuals into suitable housing options. And that's the priority, is to provide living conditions that are a better condition than what those individuals are currently in there, if they will accept the offer of housing and shelter. So in order to do something like this, the Department of Commerce and State Patrol and DOT reached out to the regional technical team, the staff support to the Regional Housing Council to start talking about how to do that. At first, the goal was to take this effort and complete it by the end of June. But as we articulate, we don't have the resources, the shelter beds or the supportive housing or other resources available in order to do that. So we've been going back and forth, having conversation with them about what it would take to put that together. And that's, again, we're in the midst of those conversations at this point. The state has identified for their first wave of work 5 priority locations. 2 of those are in Thurston County. They're looking at the interchanges at Lily Road and Pacific. And then eventually we'll get to the other interchange like Slater Kenny and Wheeler and some of the other sites are our state-owned property. The other 3 locations are up north as their first priority efforts. And again, as I mentioned, the 3 state agencies of DOT will be responsible for the physical cleanup of the campsites, the garbage and the refuse. State Patrol will be responsible for security and enforcement and providing that support in coordination with the local jurisdictions. And then Commerce is going to be some dedicated right-of-way priority funds that's going to be coming through from the state, and they're going to be help administering those contracts with all of us. And then so as we've been talking to them, the strategy again is continuing and reinforcing the current outreach efforts to these individual encampments to tell them that this action is coming and that there's going to be a offer of housing and support, trying to get them to agree to go into shelters. That's going to be handled through a contract that's in the works with the county right now to provide those outreach services. They'll subcontract out. The other piece of the strategy is to try to get shelter beds, overnight shelter beds available to support this effort. And right now, Interfaith Work at their community commons is going to be able to prioritize about 24 beds for this effort. And the state will be contracting with the county within subcontract with, they'll contract directly with Interfaith Works to make those, provide support services and pay for those beds and support those operation and services. Then those are kind of the immediate steps, but then there are other strategies that are going to take a little bit more time to come to fruition. One of them is the City of Olympia has a Franz Anderson Road site. They're looking at potentially using this effort to build a 50-unit tiny home village as a location, with state funding and operation for 3 years. And And they're working on a specific interlocal agreement with Olympia to try to make that happen. And then the fourth effort is going to be looking at longer term interim shelter transition to permanent supportive housing infrastructure, which could look at hotel acquisition in Thurston County. And there's several different sites and jurisdictions that could happen in. And those are the type of details we're trying to work out and what type of funding package we would need to make that happen in the region. And so wanted to kind of bring this all together because it's going to be coming fairly quick. And there's going to be a couple of different potential decisions by the council. One is the overall MOU, and the MOU is going to act as an umbrella to all these efforts, kind of laying out the basic roles of the various agency and jurisdictional partners, the expectations, and then kind of lay out the gross terms of the strategies. And then each one of those strategies, like I mentioned, the contract with the county to provide case management services, or with Olympia for developing a title home village, those will be agreements or contracts that are underneath that umbrella MOU to provide those strategic actions to bring them online. And then that could be, oh, yes.
My hand raised. Do we have a sense of the size of the need? Because you mentioned there are 24 beds available in the Unity Commons, but how many people need shelter? How many more after the 24 beds?
The goal is going to be set that the state's going to be looking at, I think, well, I don't think it, they're looking at identifying approximately 100 beds of resources. So that could be a combination of shelter, tiny home, or supportive housing type units. And again, what the conversation is, there's an urgency from the state to get this started and completed, but also it's going to take time to bring these resources online. So we're putting out a timeline and a strategy that we're going to respond back to the state so that they could see that and see how that funding stream would come in to bring those things online over time. So it won't be an immediate action along the entire corridor. They are going to look at starting with the smallest camp at Lily Road, which is about 3 individuals. And that actually is going to be started tomorrow afternoon going into Saturday. But we do have those shelter beds, the interfaith, that could be a place for those to go. But as time goes on, we build more resources, then we'll be able to have more opportunity.
So that's all good. What is the plan for those who don't necessarily, so they're going to take them out of clean them out of the camps. What if they don't want the help? They don't want, they don't have to take it, obviously. So what if they don't want to go into shelters? Where are they going to wind up? That's
part of the approach is if they're going to have the offer of housing with this funding. If they don't accept housing, there's still going to be, that's where State Patrol comes in, and the continual outreach is this is not a sanctioned encampment, it's not a safe location, and you can't be here. And the state's is stepping up.
That's my concern though, is that going to then just push them into the jurisdictions, because they're going to be pushed out of state property and not willing to take the shelter opportunity. So that kind of push it into our jurisdiction.
And that very well could be. I know it could be in a Tumwater and
sure.
Beyond. And that's one of the things with the MOU we want to specify. One, that they don't allow the encampments to reestablish on these locations that are being cleared, but also that agreements don't extend just for those current locations, that along the entire corridor, that the DOT and State Patrol are committed long-term to working with the local jurisdiction to ensure that we don't continue to have them pop up and grow. And one of the things that has been brought up is the agreements we've had with the state, and that's somewhat starting to be used as an example.
So can you talk about this June 30th deadline for the $20 million, which is what's the big urgency right now, where all the county and the Olympia and Tumwater, they're all, it's this June 30th deadline for it.
We just
Were you at the 3 cities meeting?
I wasn't at the 3 cities meeting, but I believe there's a couple different deadlines. One is we got a deadline to respond back to the draft MOU with additional comments before we can get it ready for presentation. And then there's also, with these funds, there's going to be some rapid acquisition dollars that are coming out, and they're just put together the proposal, and they're asking for us for comments on that proposal so we can give them feedback and questions on what some of the terms are. That's the June 30th deadline. But the funding plan to utilize those funds needs to be in by July 21st.
Okay.
And so there's two different deadlines there, and it is quick. And
It's
we
real
got to
quick.
put together a regional plan. And what they're setting up, and one of the things that's really worked well for us in this situation is they want to work with a region and regional partnerships, but if that doesn't work, then they'll work with individual jurisdictions, agencies, or service providers. But because we're already kind of convening on this topic through the Regional Housing Council and the technical team has been working together, we're able to work fairly quickly to put that package together.
So the county commissioners gave Romero the authority to do this MOU, and Olympia Council did the same with their city manager, and Tomar did the same with their, their city administrator. That was the big question I had for Scott, and reason why I was wondering if we had to meet today to give Scott the authority. And talking to Scott, he says, well, it sounds like it won't be Lacey that's going to be applying for this emergency acquisition funding. It's going to be Lehigh that's going to be applying for it. So we don't have to quite worry about that. Is that correct?
We are, yes, in a sense. So we haven't had any official agreements with Lehigh but Lehigh is somebody, that would be interested in coming in and being a service provider, operating in some of these tiny houses, the tiny village, and potential hotel acquisition. There is the MOU, the umbrella MOU that will need to be signed by each of the jurisdictions. And that's where we want to bring it back to the council, present it to you to make sure it fits what your expectations are, and then ask you to authorize the city manager to sign that MOU. Then as we go forward, if there is an acquisition effort and we can go look at a particular site, that's some of the things we're going to have to figure out. Is it better for the city or county to lead that effort, or is it better to enter an agreement with a service provider to lead that effort as well? And that goes back to timing and ability to get things up and running quickly.
I mean, Malcolm, didn't you hear that? Weren't they all saying that they had to make a decision by the June 30th?
Yeah, so the 30th deadline was something that I reached out to the program manager about. I didn't hear back from her, unfortunately, but it sounded as if, Commerce was looking for us to have some type of plan together by the 30th so that we could move forward, just period. And so if we didn't hit our deadline, it almost sounded as if, we weren't going to be able to receive these dollars. And so that's how come I was trying to reach out to the program manager to find out, is number one, is that the case? Number two, are there some obstacles that can be removed so that we could have a speedier process? Doing sometimes when you're underwriting something, you don't need absolutely everything to be on the table at the time of a decision. It's just that you need enough to make a decision.
So
That's why I feel like we should at least have a consent from this council to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract where feasible, or we're gonna miss out on this $20 million possible this emergency acquisition money.
This is the draft right-of-way initiative process requirements, which you've been talking about. This is what we're coming back on, getting clarification before they finalize the proposal. But it is stated that if local governments from the 5 priority jurisdictions associated with the priority sites are not able to assemble a viable proposal by July 21st, 2022, then they can look at funding with.
What's this June 30th deadline that everyone was freaking out about?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I wasn't in those conversations.
You said June 30th is the deadline to give back comment.
Well, we're actually trying to we got comments back today on this for clarification. And then of course, we don't have a deadline on getting the MOU done, but we're trying to get that done as quickly as possible because that's going to set the full playing field. So I'm not sure what the June 30th deadline is.
We just don't want to miss it.
Out.
And I can
It's just strange to me that this problem has been ongoing for how long now, and all of a sudden, it's a top burner priority with the governor.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the county, Olympia, everyone's, we just had this conversation with the other jurisdictions, and they're all doing the exact same thing, where we've been talking about this forever and ever and ever, and all of a sudden it got to the governors and he said, like, you will do this. And so now they're like,
Well,
they have to do it now.
And then I could say this, though, through these conversations over the years, we've always said we're as a state,
Yes.
and now the state's here and they're bringing money.
Oh, that's what we
And
need.
it's a great
Which
opportunity.
is fine, but they're like June 30th, which is,
Well, and that's,
Possible to meet,
that's where we're
unless we
talking,
take action, preemptive action on that.
yeah.
and that's where we've been talking to them, saying, okay, let's get a plan and a strategy and a timeline, and then we can see how we can make progress.
So then, what I just want to say here is, can we please, I talked to Scott earlier today, Scott couldn't be here today, and I said, are we sure we're okay with this 30th deadline? And he came back and goes, it will be someone else applying for the funds and not the city, so we should be okay. So it would be Lehigh in this circumstance, that would be applying for funds to say for a hotel acquisition within Lacey. But of course, we want to be a part of that discussion, though. And so,
Right.
I don't want to sign a blank.
I
check.
can,
yeah, I just want to double check on that, because if we have to call an emergency meeting for some reason, quick, and give authorization to do it, I'm more than happy to do that. But I just don't want to possibly miss out.
I can check with Tom Webster first thing in the morning and see what he knows what this June 30th deadline is.
Well, they all knew about it, because we all were talking about it last Friday. Right, Malcolm?
Yeah, we talked about it last Friday. We talked about it, actually found out like, the month before, in the May meeting when it was fresh, like only 24 hours old.
Yeah.
And everybody started saying, oh, we can, and we got 60 days almost to make something happen. So that was the date that was initially thrown out. If there's a different date and that gives us 3 weeks, and that's fantastic, but
Limited acts, permission to act on it, and instead of doing an emergency meeting if we had to.
Yeah, but
We don't have anything.
Suggesting by way of, the city manager can enter into agreements with other jurisdictions as long as he's not committing city funds.
yeah.
You've previously given him authority to do that.
Right.
I'm not aware of what this deadline is either. It sounds to me like, based on your comments, that these other jurisdictions have simply authorized their city manager or, administrator to look into these.
Enter into an MOU, yeah.
But so Scott already has that.
Enter into an MOU with no specificity. That doesn't seem.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'd limit it just to this particular.
And this
30
particular-
deadlines of the end.
Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
I mean, it sounds like we're talking about just supporting Scott to exercise authority that he already has. So yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah,
And there wouldn't be funds committed by the city of Lacey in this, at this point, no.
okay.
So it doesn't sound like Scott needs any further authority if he needs.
And
to
the
do
other
it.
thing too, the only June 30th deadline, just recalled, is when this first came up in May, that was the timeframe for removing the encampments. And so that's where we pushed back, and now it's in August. Now we're looking at a schedule for, August and then benchmarks to December. But that's the only June 30th timeframe I can remember. But again, this has been evolving quite quickly over the last 5 weeks. And it's a focus of the conversation with the tech team every Wednesday. And plus we are also in daily meetings with, State Patrol, Commerce, and DOT every morning at 7:30. So we're having those daily to coordinate not only the larger conversation of agreements and strategies, but also the logistics for this first step that's going to start tomorrow at Lily Road. And then we also have additional meetings with Commerce staff about the RFP proposal that they're putting together too. So there's been a lot of conversations, and it's been evolving.
Yeah, if you're having conversations every day, then I'm sure if there was some deadline that was truly a deadline for the 30th, you'd know
But
that.
I will verify.
There is, it's $20 million for the rapid rehousing part of this
But that's not
proposal.
the 30th from what.
So the $19 million, the Thurston County is going to receive approximately $19 million at this point. We're asking for more, but 19 million. That's the deadline I was just referred to with this proposal for July 21st.
I can confirm that from my notes from the Regional Housing Council meeting yesterday.
The county is the one that's doing that.
Right. And we have
It's doing
until, we have 30 days.
Yeah, the county is the one that's going to be applying for those funds, right?
We're going to be putting together a proposal, yes. And we're going to be a combined proposal, but it's going to come through as the county has coordinating that. Yeah, we're doing it as a regional partnership.
So the June 30th thing is not this money.
There's a June 30th deadline. We were all talking about it. Everyone seemed to know about it, so, and Scott knows about it, but he says Lacey isn't going to be applying for it. It'll be a nonprofit that did, so.
And I'll find out what that is, because, yeah. Not being at that meeting, I don't know the context of the conversation, and if it was evolving information or for something different. So,
Is it to provide feedback on what the county is going to submit?
I didn't catch that. You say that again, Councilmember?
Sorry, is the June 30th deadline just for the jurisdictions like Lacey to provide feedback on what the county is going to submit?
No, because we're in constant conversation and email dialogue all this week, so I don't even know that we're putting together the package as quickly as possible and coordinate. So I'm not sure.
Okay, well,
Maybe there is no June 30th deadline.
But the ultimate goal of this was make sure the council was aware that this is something that's moving quickly, evolving quickly, and we're going to probably bring in some MOUs that are going to be trying to be as simplified as possible, but they are going to be complex. They're going to be an MOU with the state and all the jurisdictions, setting how is everything going to work, and then eventually individual ILAs with each of the jurisdictions for specific efforts to implement some of the strategies.
and one of the reasons why we even decided we need to tell the whole council about this, because there's some immediate actions going to happen by the county and possibly other partners by the 30th, which is why we're decided to have a quick check-in today.
Well,
as
and
council.
and also too, there is a desire to move quickly, especially if there's in property acquisition, which we can't, just looking at different types of things, and that's the other part. It can move fairly quickly as well. And we got to figure out the partner, the right model and operation, and make sure there's proper dollars that support that operation appropriately.
Included today.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, well,
Sweet.
if you can just send out something quick. I know there is a June 30th deadline. I just don't know what it's for. But
I will find out what that is.
okay. Anything from you guys? Okay.
I hope it's July 21st.
July 20, yeah.
Same.
That would be nice. That would be a nice 3-week reprieve, and maybe we can. Who knows what, but
Well, we'll figure that out. Okay, we reached the end of our meeting, so without objection, I'll call this meeting adjourned.
thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Bye, everybody.
That's July 20th.